Uh, what was your favorite game of that generation?
Oh, that's a hard one to pick. There's definitely a lot of games from the fifth generation I'm very nostalgic about for sure. Admittedly, even I'm willing to admit, though, a couple of those games haven't aged very well. Um, even though I'm still very nostalgic about them. Uh,
Welcome back to Bar City, episode 95. I'm Eric.
I'm Kevin.
All right. So, how was your weekday weekend?
Um, Very sleepy so far. I don't know. I can't stop falling asleep everywhere I'm at home, at work, and I literally almost fell asleep driving in the car.
Yeesh.
I don't know why I'm so sleepy all the time, but for some reason I am. Yeah, it's been a sleepy thing. I did get
Ah,
a decent amount of stuff done in my game though this week. I think I only got a couple more weekends or slash weeks of setting up stuff in the database and stuff, and then I can finally actually get to the meat of the game, which will be really nice. So I'm looking forward to that. But other than that, really haven't done much. So
yeah.
how was yours?
I mainly just played some video games. I watched some shows with the wife. I've been playing Outer Worlds 1 because I
Yeah.
got the on Game Pass. They have the Spacer's Choice Edition, so it has all the DLC. I beat it finally, and now I'm playing the opposite path because you can, have two different endings. Oh, you can have multiple technical versions of endings, but it's just technically different. Because at the end of it, he reads the narrator happens. He reads through everything that you've done and the outcomes of every option of the major choices. So you can slightly
Mm.
alter some of those, and if you have companions with you, they have some outcomes depending on how you worked with them on their companion quests.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the solo corporate asshole run now, so
Oh, okay.
yeah. Because I did the cool, gathered all the companions and helped the entire colony out run the first time. And now I'm
Right.
being the asshole. But so this episode we're on Gen 5 of gaming.
Yeah.
So Kevin has said that there's a lot he wants to talk about in Gen 5. So I figured, since he's got a lot to talk about, I will just go quickly over the timeline of Gen 5 and how it all goes together and what was added in time, in Gen 5. And then I'm going to hand it all over to Kevin and let him go on his Gen 5 rant.
Oh boy.
So the fifth generation of consoles, it came, was 1993 to 2006. It's also when we started leaping into the 3D graphics heavily and the CD-ROM technology. Yeah. And because it did have the 32-bit and the 64-bit war. That was
Oh
an
yeah.
interesting thing. And which has ultimately established the newest competitor into the gaming market as the dominant market leader, which was the PlayStation in 1994. But before we get to that, we can actually kick off this generation with the Atari Jaguar and the 3DO Interceptive multiplayer.
Yep.
Yeah, the Atari Jaguar was released in November of that year. It was marketed as the first 64-bit console, but suffered from a clunky controller and lack of strong third-party support. Then you had the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, which was released in October 1993 by the CDO company. It was technologically impressive, but heavily hindered by its initial $699 launch price. We had a console back in Gen 5 that is a similar price to consoles now.
Yeah. And if you adjust for inflation, it would be way higher than that.
Yeah.
So it's
And
crazy. So,
yeah. And then in 1994, we had the 32-bit heavyweights, which was the Sega Saturn, which was launched in Japan in November 1994, in North America in May of 1995. Despite a strong 2D and arcade legacy, its complex architectural made it difficult to develop for. I could not speak for some reason on that one.
Yeah.
Basically, it was just too complex.
Yeah.
They over engineered it.
Yeah.
And then we have the launch of the Sony PlayStation. It launched in Japan in December 1994, North America in September 1995. Its accessible hardware adaptation for CD-ROMs and hits like Crash Bandicoot and Metal Gear Solid led it to dominate the generation.
Oh yeah.
And then we get 1995 to 1996, which was the 3D and handheld variations of stuff. You had the Nintendo Virtual Boy, which launched in July 1995. This early attempt at virtual reality used red monochrome 3D graphics, but was discontinued a year later due to commercial failure. Yeah, they didn't really do good on that one. Sorry, Nintendo. And then we get the launch of the 64, Nintendo 64, in June 1996, and in Japan and North America in September 1996. It championed as a true 64-bit console. It popularized the analog stick and revolutionized 3D platform with Super Mario 64, which my grandma loved and knew every tips and tricks of the book on how to fucking Goomba slide. God, that
Yeah.
woman she's a mad woman on that one. But we also seen that little bit was the Sega Nomad. It was a portable handheld version of the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So if you liked handhelds and you liked the Genesis, there was your Nomad. But it would probably been it was outshined probably by the Game Boy Color that was released in 1998 by Nintendo. While previous gen hardware continued to sell, this handheld brought color to a massively successful Game Boy lineup, which is probably also where we get Pokemon too. So then we had the Neo Geo Pocket, which launched in the late 1998 by SNK, offered a strong portable alternative for arcade fans. The PS P-Zone, released in July of 2000, it was a highly successful, smaller redesign of the original PlayStation. So this is where handhelds really started getting big and being made.
Yeah.
Because before this, I think it was mostly just Sony with the handheld market. Not Sony, but Nintendo.
Yeah. Yeah, a
But
few
yeah,
other companies tried to do it, but it was always a fail on their end. And Nintendo was the only one that could do it in those days. So,
yep. And then Gen 5 changed all that. So in Gen 5, which is it's packed full of stuff. You had the 64-bit war with 32-bit, and then you had, the 3D aspect coming up heavily, and then of course Sony getting into the console wars. Uh, it's a packed year, honestly.
yeah.
I know Half-Life came out,
Yeah.
and we had the Super Mario 64, Quake 2,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, Super Smash Bros. And of course, as a speaker, this Metal Gear came out then. Didn't Fallout start then as well?
Um, yeah, Fallout. Yeah.
Hmm.
Fallout 1 and 2 came out in this generation.
And then, of course, Zelda Majora's Mask and the Ocarina of Time. I remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few good games. There are quite a few good games that came out at the time. Uh, what was your favorite game of that generation?
Oh, that's a hard one to pick. There's definitely a lot of games from the fifth generation I'm very nostalgic about for sure. Admittedly, even I'm willing to admit, though, a couple of those games haven't aged very well. Um, even though I'm still very nostalgic about them. If I had to pick one favorite, Well, I mean, there's the obvious one, but the obvious one is Daggerfall, but I won't pick that one because that one's like kind of a weird situation for me because I didn't discover that game until way later. Uh, but I maybe Bomberman 64, probably if I had to pick a favorite from my childhood and a game I still like appreciate a lot today. So
I would have to choose Final Fantasy VII.
yeah, Final Fantasy VII is definitely a good pick. So I decided to kind of skip over that one too because I didn't actually play Final Fantasy VII until like years later. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I ended up giving it to my cousin, but I had the big,
yeah,
I still had for the longest time, because I had two copies of it. So I bought one, was playing it, and then I found another one years later at a flea market for like $2, and it was, how it's the big old set, they had all the discs they had back then,
yeah.
and it was still wrapped. So I bought it, and I was just going to keep it up, and then my cousin. And a few years later, my cousin was like talking about how he really wants to collect the old Final Fantasy because he really loves them. He's really gotten into Final Fantasy heavily. And I was sitting there, I was like, you know what? All right. So when his birthday came around, I gave him the unopened copy of Final Fantasy VII.
Oh
And
really?
then a few years later, I lost my fucking copy of it. I don't even know if he still has
Oh
the one I
dang.
gave him. I actually have to ask him
Yeah.
that one day. But we also had GoldenEye 007 come out that year
Oh
too.
gosh, yeah. A lot of
I
people our age remember that game. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost punched my little cousin a few times over that one.
Yeah.
He's a little fucking shit with that on that game. He wasn't that good, but he was a fucking shithead and always whined and complained.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd always want to play it. I don't know. And of
That was
course, I
him
played
having
the
fun, whining and complaining.
yep.
Mhm.
Of course, I played the shit out of Crash Bandicoot and the
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda games.
Yeah.
Didn't really get into Metal Gear Solid. I still haven't gotten into it. So hate me in the comments if you want.
Metal Gear Solid was a series I started playing more in the sixth generation, not really in the fifth generation. So,
Hmm. But yeah, that's pretty much the fifth generation in a full nutshell. That's the top of it all. The biggest thing about that is, of course, the 32-bit versus 64-bit war and Sony's introduction into gaming heavily with
yeah.
their own console. But now I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, who's got himself a Gen 5 rant, I guess.
Well, not so much a rant. I do have a minor rant at the very end to tell. So, if we have enough time to get to it. Uh, Definitely don't have anything like heavily negative to say like I did with Gen 4. I feel like I just trashed all over that generation in that episode. And but yeah, I thought it would be kind of fun to like because I before like with Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4, like I didn't have a lot, like I had a few personal stories I could tell, but I didn't have like a whole lot of them. This is like the first generation I can actually say that I have more like personal stories and personal experiences to have, like versus like the business side stuff, pop culture side stuff to talk about. Uh,
Yeah.
so because I was like doing research for this episode and it finally clicked in my head, I was like, I think I would kind of rather just tell more personal stories with this generation than I would like business stories and pop culture stories. So, but I mean, we could obviously talk about a few. So, and I just didn't know how heavily I wanted to go on which one. But so, like, my introduction to the fifth generation kind of really got its start with the Nintendo 64, but mostly just because of my age. I had never heard of the PlayStation until I got slightly older. And, or if I did hear of it or saw it in Walmart or whatever, then, like, I don't remember paying any attention to it. I have no memory of, like, seeing that one first before the Nintendo 64. So, um, the 64 is the one I remember first. And my introduction to that one was kind of like with my cousin. He, his mom, my aunt, his mom bought him a Nintendo 64 plus a couple of games for his birthday.
Hmm.
And one of those games, of course, was Super Mario 64. And at this point, I had played a lot of like Super Mario Bros. 3, the original Super Mario Bros. And I had even played Super Mario World at another friend that we went to church with at her house and stuff like that. And so I played various Mario games and I was pretty familiar with the series. And I remember like seeing like, because she wanted to test and make sure it was working properly and because she bought it used because like say keep in mind like this was like for his 8th birthday, so this was already like 2 years after the console had come out, but to me it was brand new. I had never heard of it. And uh I think I was 7 at the time. And um so I was there with my mom that day that she was testing it out. And I remember so I actually got to see the console in the game before my cousin even got to see it because he was at some kind of soccer tryout game or something like that. I can't remember. And I remember my jaw just like almost hitting the floor when I first saw Super Mario 64 for the first time. And like to me, that looked like super realistic at the time, at the
Mm.
3D graphics and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my God. And my aunt even let me play the game for like a couple of minutes. And I remember playing it and like, oh my God, I was just like shocked how how the gameplay was. I remember seeing the mechanic where you jump into the paintings and thinking that was the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, "Oh my God, that is amazing." And I was obsessed with the idea that you could like run around the Peach's castle and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And because I thought that was so cool, because I was used to like where you have the menu,
Yeah.
or basically you map and you just like move around and you just select what level you go to. That's what I was used
Yeah.
to. So this was the first time I'd ever seen like a more world, type feature where you're running around in a world and then you jump into other parts of the world. And I was just like, that was like just blew my mind. And I remember being so obsessed with this game for many years before I finally actually got to sit down and play it more thoroughly at my other cousin's house. And or yeah, I say years, but like in my head it felt like years, but in reality it was probably like less than a year that all this took place because when you're a kid, time goes by so much slower, and or it feels like it does. And but yeah, I remember being like a kid on the playground, like pretending to be Mario, like jumping through all the levels and stuff, like in Super Mario 64 and stuff. I was like beyond obsessed with this
Sheesh.
game. Yeah. I literally couldn't hardly think about anything else for like a long period of time there, or for that year or whatever it was. And but yeah, that was kind of my introduction to the fifth generation. So was through the 64. No, many years we finally got a Nintendo 64, and by then, like the sixth generation had already got its start. And we were always like a generation or two behind, my family was, because we didn't have a whole lot of money. And and so like we surprisingly though didn't have Super Mario 64. I never actually owned the game, so I only got to play the game at other people's houses. So and like cousins and stuff. And but we did. I remember for my birthday, my mom asked me what I wanted. I think it was for my um I want to say my 10th birthday, when I was turning 10, if my memory serves me correctly, because the year before that, I for that Christmas, I think my mom bought me the Game Boy Color. So
Okay.
that was my first Game Boy. That was my introduction to like the handheld market from a more personal level. Of course, I had played the Game Boy and my sister's Game Boy, but you can only get to play it so many times, because siblings, arguing with you how
Hmm.
long they'll let you play it for and all that good stuff. So this was the first one that was mine, and I got to play on it as much as I wanted.
Yeah.
And so my mom, for my birthday that year, my mom asked me what I wanted, and I didn't know much about like video game genres at that age. So because I was still like so out of the loop on so much stuff. And because I just didn't know, like I didn't have video game magazines and we never really went to gaming stores and stuff. And I didn't have a lot of friends that were like as into video games as I was, surprisingly.
Hmm.
And so I didn't know like the technical terms of stuff. So I told my mom, I was like, well, I really like those level games where you jump, like basically I was referring to side scrollers. I was like, I really like those types of games where you have to jump on these platforms and you get jump through the levels and stuff. And I was like, and I also would love another game for the Nintendo 64. I was like, whatever game, looks interesting. And so she was like, okay. So she just went to the store and like told them kind of what I wanted. And she bought me two games, one for the Game Boy Color and one for the Nintendo 64. Little did she know that those two games were actually designed by the exact same company. She didn't even know that. And she got me Bonk's Adventure for the Game Boy Color. And I played the crap out of that game, made by Hudson Soft, the same people that made the what is that console called? The 16 TurboGrafx 16 that came out in the fourth generation.
Yeah.
And they made that console, but it didn't work out too well for them financially, so they just switched over to software, making games only. And then she bought me Bomberman 64 for the Nintendo 64, and also made by Hudson Soft. And and
Yeah.
I remember playing the crap out of both of those games. I was like so obsessed with like both of them, in particular Bomberman 64. I thought the mechanics where you use the bombs to jump, like you bounce your character up on higher platforms and stuff. I thought that was like the coolest freaking thing ever. It got to the point where I was like so obsessed with Bomberman 64, I kind of actually liked it better than Mario 64. And I still feel that same way today. Like I actually kind of like that game better than Mario 64. To me, Mario 64 hasn't really aged that well. At least in terms of mechanics and like yeah, functionality, I guess, is probably a
Yeah.
good word to use. Like it's really tricky. Like when I played that game more recently, it's actually really hard to jump from some of the platforms to the platforms, and not in a good way, like not in a fun, challenging way. It's hard because the functionality is so bad in that game. But obviously that was 3D games were like brand new at the time, and so it's understandable why but as a kid, I don't remember really having that problem. But yeah, as an adult, I was like, this game has not aged very well functionality wise. But Bomberman 64, when I replayed that game, I didn't have that same problem. I still thought it was a lot of fun to uh platform or play the game and platform and everything. And I didn't feel like there was any mechanics like or functionality wise felt like anything aged poorly. I still thought it was really fun to play and everything aged. Of course, Bomberman 64 came out, I think, a year or two later. So obviously 3D games had more time to, flesh out a little bit more with developers and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, those were games I was obsessed with on the 64. Of course, we played Mario Party a lot. Some I actually was never the biggest Mario Party fan, even to this day. It's not one of my favorite like party games to play or games to play with friends and stuff like that. But, if I'm with someone that just loves to play it, yeah, sure, I'll play, some games with them on Mario Party. It's just admittedly it's not like my first choice. So, but one game I did love to play though with by myself and with other people was Super Mario Kart 64. I love the crap out of that game. So, and Diddy Kong Racing was a lot of fun too. And both of those games were really fun to play. And of course, like you mentioned earlier, GoldenEye.
Mhm.
Me and my sister played that game together. So we did a lot of co-op together, like all the time. So, and I remember having so much fun playing that game. And of course, my cousin, she knew a lot more about video games at the time more than I did, and
Yeah.
she showed me all the like tips and tricks and stuff like that on how to play that game better because I still was brand new to like first person shooters. I don't even know if I'd ever really played one yet at that point when I played GoldenEye. And if I had, I don't recall playing one. And like I said, I mostly played like platformers and stuff like that. That was my go-to game genre at the time. And yeah, so let's see. Is there any other 64 games I was obsessed with as a kid? Uh, yeah, I got Mario Kart. I got um those were definitely the main ones. I'm sure there's smaller ones. Oh, Gex. I loved the Gex series when I was a kid. The like I played Gex. I owned Gex 3, but I think I also had played Gex 2 at a cousin's house. That was a game I was really obsessed with a lot. And of course, there's games that you could argue are even better than games like Mario 64, which is like Banjo Kazooie or Banjo Tooie, maybe even Donkey Kong 64. I know I crapped on Donkey Kong Country, but Donkey Kong 64 is
Four was
actually, in
actually
my opinion,
good. Yeah.
yeah, actually loved that game. So it plays sort of like Mario 64 as well, but maybe a bit more expanded on world
Yeah.
wise. Because Mario 64, they rely on that castle jumping in the paintings gimmick thing, which again at the time, like I said, I was obsessed with. But it was cool when I finally played like Donkey Kong 64, Banjo Kazooie, and stuff like that several years later. It was cool to explore a game that was more like felt more like a world and not like separated areas from each other. And yeah, oh, Conker's Bad Fur Day is another great platformer I love. That's a platformer that's more like adult friendly type platformer. There's a lot of adult humor and stuff like that in it. So
Yeah.
uh unlike like most platformers are known for like kid games and stuff like that, a lot of
Not that one.
cutesy and kid friendly. But yeah, Conker's Bad Fur Day is yeah, it's definitely adult jokes, and there's even a lot of cussing and stuff in it. Um, and they actually even did a remake of that game for the Xbox original, like several years later, called
Yep.
Conquer Live and Reloaded. But I've heard a lot of people say that they actually don't care for that game. Of course, we can talk more about that later. But I've looked at gameplay of that game and it looks fine to me. But maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, that's pretty much the Nintendo 64. So
When it comes to
uh,
Nintendo 64 on me, I mean, I played a lot of GoldenEye, of course. We did
oh
have
yeah.
the one uh South Park game.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah. We were allowed to play it because my grandma was the one who had the 64, but we had to mute the TV. We couldn't play with the
Oh,
volume
okay.
on.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to hear the jokes.
Yeah.
Um, Pokemon Snapshot
Oh yeah, I forgot about that game. Yeah.
and the WCW.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to play any wrestling games at the time. My mom wouldn't let me play any of that. So that came more in the sixth generation when I got introduced to wrestling games. So mm. My mom was like a huge WWF/WWE hater, so she couldn't stand any of the stuff. So mhm.
Damn.
Yeah, so I wasn't allowed to watch it, play any games, even know about it, read about it. I couldn't know anything. So,
That kind of sucks, actually.
yeah, until I got, like I said, until I got older, she did let me play games, like in like right around the sixth generation time, but she still wouldn't let me watch like um WWE for the longest time. Finally, when I was like an older teenager, was I think my first time I ever actually sat down and watched any like WWE stuff. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm
Yeah.
getting way off topic.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun games on the 64. That's the one I played the most after that, Jen, because honestly, at that point, I still went over to my buddy's house every once in a while, and they still had the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't have access to playing a PlayStation until my aunt married one of my used to be uncle, which I still call him uncle because
Yeah.
he's we get along really well when we talk. But he had the PlayStation. Him and my cousin Randy, his stepson, my aunt's actual son.
Hmm.
And we played a lot of NASCAR games on it
Oh, really?
because that's what mostly he played. And then uh my cousin Randy, he played a lot of that Toy Soldier game.
Hmm.
And a few other things we played Crash Bandicoot, but mostly my era of PlayStation didn't come until like the PS2 and the backwards compatible stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly at that time it was straight up every once in a while Sega, and a little bit of some, PlayStation, and but mostly 64 or the Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, this era started, when I was born. So this is technically my birthplace. So I was really little
Yeah,
when by the
that's
end of this gen.
that's that's sort of my issue with this generation too. Is like I have a lot of memories of it, but a good portion of the memories are kind of fuzzy for me because, like I said, like when it actually gets into the meat of the generation, I was still so young and like I didn't know about a lot of this stuff until like a couple of years when I was already a couple of years late to the game. No pun intended.
I mean,
And
I was a toddler through the last half of that. Like I was 7 years old when that this gen ended. So
yeah,
like I wasn't really playing games.
yeah,
And like a lot of my memories of those games come back from replaying it again later, like GoldenEye, WCW game and all that.
yeah,
I was probably already like 10, 11. So it had been a few years later after the end of this generation.
yeah,
But during it, I played very little. I mostly watched my grandma play or my cousin play because he was 3 years older than me. So by the time he got it, he was already getting in his preteens.
yeah,
Of course, my uncle being a grown ass man.
yeah,
And that's where I really got started was mostly with gaming. Then I followed up the other gens later once I got older. Um, but yeah, most of it when I as a toddler was a NASCAR game where you could do a certain uh game mode in a sense, I guess technically would have been back then.
yeah.
Uh where you could shoot paintballs out of your NASCAR.
Yeah,
And I remember being a little shit, being so mad at my uncle because when I finally started learning how to play that game, I'm talking like I'm 6, 7 years old.
yeah.
He'd come up behind me, just shoot me with the damn paintballs, which would flip your car around.
Yeah.
And I used to be such a little shit about it. Oh, I'm still pissed at him to this day about some of those. Like he's a grown ass man getting mad that a 6, 7 year old finally got good at a game.
Yeah. He just couldn't handle
Fucking
it.
asshole. I love him to death. He's a great guy, but he's a fucking
Yeah.
asshole. I learned a lot of my assholeness from him, so I can't really talk too much.
Yeah. So that's why you're like the way you are now.
He really, yeah. He's also the reason why I have basically a comeback for almost anything or can turn anything sexual.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was one of the few people when I was around him because my I'll get on this little tangent super quick. My aunt and him, they were the only members of the family at the time that didn't like censor themselves around children.
Yeah.
Like she was getting me into horror movies at 3 years old. I'd go
Yeah.
there and watch horror movies, listen to heavy metal music and this and that. And he'd cuss and talk and make stupid jokes. And my Uncle Ray got like that later, but only when his kids weren't around, but which he only had his kids during the summer. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but yeah, so in the video game aspect, like I have a lot of fond memories of it, but again, it's multiple stages of
Yeah. Yeah.
memories.
Yeah. Yeah. My memories have a tendency, particularly with this generation, and do bounce kind of all over the place. So, because again, like I said earlier, I have a lot of memories of this generation, but there's a good portion of them that are kind of hazy or foggy for me because I was still so young. So, yeah, my introduction to the PlayStation was actually from like one of my neighbors when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Or at least this is the first time me remembering seeing it or hearing about it. He was, we were, this was, of course, I was at that age where, we went around the neighborhood all the time and we're riding our bikes and rollerblading and skateboarding and everything. And
Yeah.
after obviously doing that a lot, you get to know your other kid neighbors. And so eventually I got to know some of these people so much, they eventually would invite me in their house and stuff. And one of them had the PlayStation. They were like, oh, you got to play. And they introduced me to the game Driver, the first Driver game.
Oh,
and I had never seen it before, and he was like, "Oh, you got to play this game." And at first, when he first started playing it, I naturally thought it was like a racing game or something. I was like, "Yeah, I've played like some racing games, like Cruising USA," and I remember playing like and of course I told him about Mario Kart and stuff like that. And he was like, "No, this isn't a racing game." He was just like, "This is like I can't remember how he described it." Um, but really, more or less, it's actually kind of an action adventure game, but you play as a car, really, because you're just
Yeah.
in the car all the time. It's more or less what it is, but I can't remember how he described it. But anyway, um, but yeah, he let me play for a little bit, but I mostly was watching him play because I didn't know really how to play it, and because I'd never played that game before. But I finally got a chance to play Driver a lot for myself, but we got it for the PC, so me and my sister did, and I played the crap out of that game on our computer, and I was always on there playing Driver. So, but most of the time, like I was just kind of like fucking around, really, like where I was
Yeah.
just like sometimes I didn't always play like the like levels to like progress further. Sometimes I was literally just like would pick a map where you could just free drive because they had like the free drive mode. A lot of games had stuff like that back then. And I would just literally just do that, just be driving around the map, almost like I'm playing Grand Theft Auto before I even knew what Grand Theft Auto was. And where you just kind of free play and free driving around. But yeah, that
Hmm.
was sort of my introduction to the PlayStation. And of course, I think it was not too long after that. Of course, some of these memories could be flip flopped around. Where I played Crash Bandicoot at my cousin's house, the ones my cousins that live in Texas. Um, and yeah, we played a lot of Crash Bandicoot. I remember playing like Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot is an interesting series for me because I loved it a lot when I was a kid. But then
Yeah.
when replaying it as an adult, sort of like what I mentioned with Mario 64, the only problem with Crash Bandicoot is it's aged even maybe more poorly for me. I just really don't really get the appeal of those games anymore. Like when I
Yeah.
replayed them, I was just kind of like, I don't really like these games. I love Naughty Dog and I love, I did have a lot of fun playing Crash Bandicoot when I was a kid, but yeah, admittedly replaying those games as an adult, even the remake versions of them, I just feel like those are
Yeah.
not designed very well
Yeah, one of my
personally.
cousins, he's still obsessed with it. He bought
Yeah.
the remastered versions and
Yeah. Mhm.
he played the crap out of them. I mean, I enjoy them still because
Yeah.
it's Crash Bandicoot, and my brain still remembers the damn the PlayStation commercial with Crash Bandicoot in it.
Oh yeah, I remember those too. Yeah.
Yeah, so like
I,
I have a lot of fondness for Crash Bandicoot. They did make a new one a few years ago,
yeah, they did. Hmm.
and I never got to play it, but
I have
then
not played
again,
it either. I
my
watched
cousin
some
played it.
gameplay of it on YouTube, but yeah, I hadn't get a chance to play it myself. So yeah. But yeah, I personally feel like, of course, Naughty Dog's sort of friendly competitive company, Insomniac Games, they made Spyro the Dragon, the trilogy. And in my opinion, I actually feel like the Spyro the Dragon trilogy is aged much better than the Crash Bandicoot
Hmm.
trilogy. I just think they're more in a modern day setting. I just think they're more fun games to play.
I
Maybe that's just my opinion though. So,
Yeah, Insomniac though they're really good at making games. I mean, look at what
oh
they're doing
yeah,
nadays.
yeah, they were
But
good back
fucking
then, and
Sony has to fucking buy them out and keep everything to their fucking exclusives. Blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
I won't get on that tangent. I've been really pissy with that one lately, especially because people's reactions to Xbox making the new Gears of War an exclusive.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But we can get to that when we get to the generation.
yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely have some rants to say in the later generations as well. But yeah, so far I'm still just in nostalgic mode with these previous generations. Obviously, like I said, being still so young during this generation, I don't really have any like personal like arguments or something like that. Because in this one we have like Nintendo versus PlayStation. Of course, Sega is sort of in the background. Um, But in all honesty, I don't know, maybe other gamers feel differently. Maybe some that are older than me may remember it a little, obviously remember it differently. But I don't have memories of like PlayStation and Nintendo ever really going head on with each
No, even
other.
though they're both
Like with
Japanese
Nintendo
companies.
versus, yeah, with Nintendo versus Sega, it was very obvious. Like they were very like head on, especially with their commercials and stuff. But I don't remember PlayStation too oftenly ever being like, "Oh, Nintendo, sucks or whatever." Like you should get a play. Like I just remember them both doing their own thing, and then just of course, PlayStation sales wise came out on top, and
Yeah.
they a lot of that is thanks. They had a lot of games too brought over to the PlayStation. A lot of that was thanks to a company called Universal Interactive. They, of course, are the ones that owned like Naughty Dog and Insomniac Games at the time. And then when they went over to the PS2, they decided to exclusively work through Sony themselves and ditch. That's the reason why they can't make Spyro the Dragon or Crash Bandicoot games anymore, because they actually don't own the rights to those EPs. Like those belong to other companies. And but of course, they can still make like Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter. Of course, we'll talk more about that later. And
I
because it's
wonder
through. But yeah.
I wonder if the reason they didn't really go at it too hard is because I mean the late 80s they worked together for the CD-ROM
Yeah.
because that was Sony helped them make the CD-ROM add-on for the Super Nintendo. So,
Yeah, they did. It was actually going to be called the Nintendo PlayStation, and of course, then they had their little split off. So, and then PlayStation became eventually its own thing.
yeah.
And then Nintendo, they decided to stick with cartridges for the fifth generation, which is interesting. And there's pros and cons to both, actually, which kind of help them and hurt them in ways from a business standpoint. Since the fact that they stuck to cartridges, companies like Square decided to switch to PlayStation and make, of course, Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation because the disc could hold a lot more space, and them wanting to make grander stories, and
Yeah.
they knew they wanted there to be cut scenes and stuff like that, and they needed that extra space in order to do all that. That's one of the reasons why if you ever have a game that was made either for the 3DO or the Sega Saturn, it got ported over to the PlayStation, and they later on, if it got ported over to the 64, they usually stripped all the cutscenes out of it because that cartridge just couldn't hold all those cutscenes. So
Yeah.
there wasn't enough space on it. But the good thing about the cartridge that about it is the loading times are faster because when obviously with a cartridge it plugs directly into the motherboard, so
hmm
the loading times are so much faster versus the disc where it's got to read the disc and then convert it and then go into the motherboard, so it's a little bit slower, but it
Yeah.
held more space. Of course, nowadays cartridge there's no issue with cartridges. Now you can put tons of crap on just a tiny little SD card, tons of space, but back
hmm
then that wasn't the case back then. So
So
and
they did actually have a major rivalry all because of the CD-ROM.
oh really.
Um, so the relationship collapsed over license and profit disputes. Nintendo unexpectedly cut ties with Sony and secretly allied with Philips behind Sony's back. Enraged, Sony continued the project on its own, releasing the original PlayStation in 1994, which launched an epic rivalry that defined 3D gaming. But instead of fighting a losing spec war, Nintendo pivoted to creating distinct gaming experiences starting in the 2000s. The rivalry shifted to hardware innovations such as Nintendo's motion controls with the Wii and portable home hybrids, Switch, competing against Sony's cinematic high-powered systems. So they
Yeah.
still are slightly at each other, but yeah, it stems from them getting into it, Nintendo cutting their ties and going behind their backs and joining up with Philips, which was a
Yeah, and
direct rival to Sony at the time.
yeah, and I mentioned that some in the last episode. I didn't know if you remember that, but yeah, that because that was they went to Philips because Philips had worked on that CDI
hmm
interactive thing, So they thought they went to them because they thought maybe they could get something together. But then later,
Yeah.
of course, later on, Nintendo changed their mind. They decided to just go in on their own. And obviously, Sony doing the same thing. They're like, you know what? We've learned some things about the gaming market now. Let's just make a console ourselves and just go in on it. So, and that's, of
Yep.
course, how the PlayStation was born. So, but
They,
yeah,
they, Nintendo created one of their biggest competitors. So
yeah.
could you imagine if it actually just stayed Nintendo PlayStation?
That yeah, like an alternative universe thing or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would obviously it wouldn't feel weird if we lived in that universe, but thinking about it from this point of view, like that would be really weird. So
well, the thing is, like, people like me, I would have never went over to Xbox probably.
oh yeah, I guess I never really thought about it from long term stuff. I'm not sure how what my decisions would have been like as I got older, if
Because,
Nintendo and PlayStation would have stayed
well,
fused together.
yeah,
So
because you also got to think Pokemon would be on a console, not a handheld eventually.
yeah, yeah,
Instead of, I mean, we had one on a console, which was the Snap, but so like Pokemon probably would have been different too today.
yeah.
uh, I can only imagine. But we'll get into that another episode at some point. A what if
Yeah, what
episode of
if? Yeah.
gaming.
Yeah, we could do that some in the post era of the series. Put what if scenarios and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was of course other PlayStation games I have a lot of nostalgia for are like the Twisted Metal series. A lot of people, played the crap out of Twisted Metal. And
Yep. I played
my
that
that
definitely
one
later in years.
I played at my cousin's house. They had Twisted Metal 2, I believe it was. And then they also had that wasn't there a racing version of Twisted Metal where you could
Twisted Metal
race
was always a
around?
race. It was a con
Uh well well there's the racing there's the I'm trying to think of the correct word for it. Battle
Yeah, basically
mode.
their derby mode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So but yeah.
I
So
mean, it was
like I
always
think
supposed to be
it
a,
I think
a death race. The entire series is a death race.
Yeah, I think it was Twisted Metal 2 that we had at their house. If my memory again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these memories are very hazy and foggy to me. So, but yeah, Twisted Metal. Let's see, what is another PlayStation game that I played a lot of? Of course, you mentioned Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is one I didn't really get a chance to play much until later because I mentioned in the last episode, like during this time, I actually did not like RPGs that much. I found those games to be boring. I preferred like platformers and stuff like that. Those were my go-to genre. And
And look at you now.
yeah, I know now RPGs I play them almost exclusively now. And but yeah, I used to say, of course, this is more like during the sixth generation, but it's a fifth generation game, so I'll mention it. But I used to always say, like, yeah, I don't really like RPGs, with the exception of Final Fantasy VII. That I used to say that all the time. I was like, that was my only exception. And and then of course, like, well, I'll talk more about it in the sixth generation, but there were other games that sort of led me down the pathway of slowly becoming more and more of a fan of RPGs. And but that Final Fantasy VII, I could make the argument that that was sort of my gateway game into the RPG like universe. So because before that, I think I played maybe like a couple of them, and every time I was just like, yeah, I hate this. So I don't like this at all. But I don't know what it was about Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if it's just because I just found the aesthetic of the game to be really cool, or maybe I just liked the characters so much, so I was willing to just
Hmm.
make an exception with the mechanics and stuff, or maybe I just didn't have as much of a problem with like the turn-based battles and stuff with Final Fantasy VII. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure what the magical ingredients for was for me as a kid. Just one of those right time at the right moment kind of things, I guess.
Maybe.
But yeah, I remember saying that a lot. It's like, yeah, I don't like RPGs with the exception of Final Fantasy VII. So, um, I used to even jokingly call RPGs really pathetic games. So, because
Yeah.
I was so creative with names, and
Wow.
but yeah, and then of course my last little thing I have the most experience on is with the Game Boy Color in this generation. I wouldn't say I had like a huge library of games that changed more with the Game Boy Advanced. Of course, we'll talk about that in the sixth generation. But I did definitely have a fair amount of them. I mentioned Bonk's Adventure. I did have a few. Of course, I played some of my sister's Game Boy games on there because, of course, it was backwards compatible. Um, I never really could get into the Pokemon games, and I was actually a Pokemon fan at the time, the show.
Yeah.
But I tried playing, like my cousin would try to get me to play it. I could never get into those. And it's the same thing today. Even though I like RPGs, I even love turn-based RPGs. I just cannot get into any of the Pokemon games, both old and new. I don't know what it is about those games. I've just never found them to be fun to play. And but yeah, and it was the same thing there. But yeah, I played mostly, I would say mostly platformers. This was also when I played the game Rayman a lot, made by
Yeah.
I always say Ubisoft, but I know it's pronounced Ubisoft. Um,
I always say
Ray,
Ubisoft too.
yeah, I don't know why. I guess that's because that's the way I played it when I was a kid. But or way I said it when I was a kid. Um, but yeah, I remember playing Rayman a lot. That was actually the game that caused me to break my Game Boy Color.
Damn.
And I remember I was playing it and I got so mad at the game. I don't even remember what level I was playing on. I got so mad at the game that I actually head bunted my Game Boy Color and the whole thing went like it kind of almost looked like ink splatter on it. It made the whole screen just like almost completely black out. So,
Wow.
and I was like, immediate, of course, that feeling of immediate regret hit me. And I was like, oh God, why did I do that? Because I knew I was screwed in that point, that my mom was not going to pay to get it fixed or obviously pay to
So,
get another one. So I knew I was screwed. So I literally couldn't play like any handhelds until my sister finally got the Game Boy Advance and I was able to play that one. So, and I learned my lesson. Don't get mad and headbutt the.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say in the podcast, it's very less likely, very unlikely my mom or my cousin will come across it. Even though my mom knows I'm doing a podcast, I already told her what it was about, so she's just like not going to listen probably.
Yeah.
Um, Me and her will talk very little on my hobbies because, well, the nerd stuff me and her can get along with are not the nerd stuff that we heavily talk about in this podcast.
Oh,
But
okay.
even though she's the one who got me into stuff, like witchcraft and wizardry and shit.
Yeah.
Um, but one of my cousins, she had the Game Boy Color. She made me mad. I was probably 6,
Oh boy.
and I stole it from her. She made me mad, so I stole it.
Yeah.
And thing is, I wasn't over at their house very often.
Yeah.
So they kept blaming one of our other cousins, which then they looked through his and they didn't have it, of course, because I actually had it. So they just decided, well, their house was messy. I don't know why they had a messy house back then. Yeah, not going to get into that. So they thought they just lost it somewhere.
Yeah.
But in reality, I had stole it, kept it secret, played it only very, very suddenly, or when I was at my buddy's house.
Yeah.
I literally kept it in my backpack because my mom
Yeah.
didn't actually check my backpack. Yeah, I was lucky in one of those kids. My mom didn't go through my school backpack. That's also because I was honest about my schoolwork. So, um, then we moved like 3 to 4 hours away, and I managed to make a bunch of new friends, and they had a couple Game Boy Colors. They're brothers, and they had a sister, which I'm not gonna get into that one. There's ended up hating those two. Um, but told my mom that I got it from them when she finally found it.
Yeah.
And she believed me. So for the longest time, I had my cousin's Game Boy Color because I stole it from her. She
Wow.
pissed me off. And that's how I got to play Pokemon the first time.
That was your introduction to Pokemon.
Besides the show,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, the video game shit. So,
If you come across this podcast somehow, cuz I love you and I'm sorry.
So did you like never tell her like that you
No, I
stole it?
still haven't told him.
Oh, okay. I was expecting this story to end in a completely different way, like that you would
No.
finally like feel bad as you got older or whatever. Because I can understand at six,
No.
like you would be like,
Dude,
oh, okay, yeah.
my cousin is the type that even if I told her now, she probably would kick my ass. Because she loved that thing.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love my
I would
little
have been
cousin.
mad too if someone would have stole my Game Boy Color. I was like,
Yeah,
and
you
I'll get more
headbutted it.
into. Yeah, yeah, I know. Uh, but I could only get mad at myself in that scenario, and which I was very pissed off at myself. But yeah, like of course we can talk more about it in the next generation. But that's actually kind of the Game Boy Color actually started my obsession more with handhelds than actual consoles. I still was playing console games and like some PC games on the side too,
Hmm.
but like really the Game Boy Color was like the game that it got me more obsessed with handhelds, and that was like almost I would say maybe 70 to maybe even almost 80% of my gameplay,
Yeah.
like in the my like preteen slash young teenage years, was like all handheld games. Like I didn't really play consoles as much, so
Yes. The next gen, which also ties in a bunch of stories. The only console I played in the next gen was the PS2. And I only played it because I met a certain friend of mine who's my current roommate, which you know.
yeah,
Other than that, it would literally because I had given the Game Boy Color to a buddy of mine before we moved off
yeah.
because he never had games. And when we were leaving that school, I gave it to him as a goodbye gift.
Oh, okay.
And that's also another reason I haven't told my cousin. um, because not only did I steal it, I gave it away.
Yeah.
He knew the story too. He thought it was funny. Of course, we're both little shitheads. That's why we're friends. He was literally the only friend I had
Yeah,
left
we're
before I
perfect
moved.
friends for each other.
Yeah, right. Um, but I got the Game Boy Advance, and I just
Yeah,
played that at home. And then anytime I stayed over at my buddy's house is when I got to play the PS2, which we can get more into that in the next gen.
yeah,
So I was like you, I pretty much went handheld for the most part in the next gen.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess we could leave Sega out on this one. Well, you could bring him in if you want to, since we didn't talk about him much. But
Well, I mean, the
out of
problem with
the
Sega at
two,
this
oh,
time, I mean, they're only good games, and for to me, in my opinion, when it comes to this, is still the Sonic games,
mhm.
and they still made a bunch of them for the previous. So I had played still the Genesis with a friend of mine before I moved,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have much
So,
in the Jupiter.
you mean the Saturn?
Was it Saturn? Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
planets, motherfuckers. It's a planet. I
Yeah.
swear.
It was a planet, yeah. Yeah, so if you want to bring the Saturn in, you can, but out of the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 and maybe Saturn, which one do you think is like the better name? Which one console do you think looks better? Like maybe back then and also today. So,
Mm, So
because me
I
personally, I would
do.
say PlayStation is probably a much better age name, and it sounds cool.
Yeah, I did prefer the name PlayStation,
Yeah,
but out of all the designs in that era, mm, I would have to give it to between those three specifically because you do have some others and they kind of looked cool, but kind of one of them was just a box, which I mean now we have the Xbox doing that. So
yeah.
honestly, would have to be I'd have to finally give the design wise to Nintendo.
Oh, really? So you like the 64 design better? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks cooler. No offense to Sony. I mean, they're kind of offense nowadays, but the PlayStation just looks like a porta potty toilet.
Really? Huh.
If you look at it from up down, it does. It looks like a toilet seat, just a square toilet seat.
That's funny. I have to look at that. Yeah,
But I will give them on the name. They got the better names. Sony
yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah, the name has a good ring to it. So it's kind of like the name for, Final Fantasy for a video game. It just has a good ring to it, good flow to it. And yeah, I guess I would say out of the two, yeah, definitely PlayStation for name. Design wise, I will say I know a lot of people hate on the 64 controllers. I've heard so much trash talk, but I actually like the banana controllers. Even to this day as an adult, I still find them very comfortable to use.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I grew up playing them. I don't know, but I like the PlayStation controller, particularly the one they came out with later, the first official DualShock controller. That one's much better than that original one they had. That original one was pretty bad, but especially for trying to play like any 3D games. Uh, but yeah, design wise, maybe a coin toss between the two. I like both of them. It's fair to say both of them are sort of going for the same aesthetic. So they're both kind
Yeah.
of the gray box. Of course, 64 has a little bit more of a
Also, they
um
have all the different color versions. So, I mean, this is
yeah, that's
where
true. That's
you
true.
get into having the clear ones and the kids fighting over who had the cooler 64. And yeah, the Pokemon versions. You have a yellow Pikachu one.
Yeah.
Ah, we could probably fill like another half an episode with just the variations of the 64. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
want to touch them in this because it would take so long. There are so many cool variants.
Yeah, there were. And it's not even just consoles too, controllers
Oh
and
God, yeah. I mean, they
yeah.
had every special console had the special controller.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would still have to give the visual to Nintendo 64 because they had so much creativity. But with that being
Yeah.
said,
Yeah, that's about all the time we have for today. So I'm still not really sure. I'm kind of on the fence here. So the next episode may be a part two of five, the fifth generation, or we may go ahead and leave that for post stuff, the rest of the stuff. It just depends on how much more I feel like I got to say. Because who knows, more games may pop in my head while we're waiting for the next episode
yeah.
that I forgot to mention, so that I could ramble on and on about. And so it either will be the sixth generation in the next episode, or we may get a part two of the fifth generation. So,
If we
but
do
yeah,
a
that's
part
all the
two of the
time we
fifth
have today.
generation, we'll talk about Nintendo 64 and all their customization colors.
Yeah,
And with that being
definitely.
said, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!
Welcome to the city where chaos thrives. Kevin and Eric keep people alive. Random talks and stories collide. Bar City Anthem, let's take a ride. Bar City, the place to be. Laughs and madness, wild and free. Tune in now, let the good vibes flow. Bar City, your favorite show. Guitars, drum, and synths ignite. Jokes and banter, morning or night. From the weird to the totally bizarre. Bar City legends shining like a star. Bar City, the place to be. Laughs and madness, wild and free. Tune in now, let the good vibes flow. Bar City, your favorite show. Guitars, drum, and synths ignite. Jokes and banter, morning or night. From the weird to the totally bizarre. Bar City legends shining like a star. Bar City, the place to be. Laughs and madness, wild and free. Tune in now, let the good vibes flow. Bar City, your favorite show. Eric drops a pun, Kevin rolls his